we are fortunate once again at Dorotheum to have a selection of important Old Master paintings which will be sold on the 12th of October. And amongst them, we have a nucleus of important Emilian paintings. A notable painting is by Guercino, the distinguished Emilian master, and it dates from one of his best periods, the 1620s. The painting was commissioned by the Locatelli family, and it was originally designed for the Church of San Gregorio in Bologna. And we know from Malvasia, from the biography of Guercino, that during the commission, Cristoforo Locatelli, the patron, decided that he wanted to keep the painting for himself. And another version was painted by Guercino for the altarpiece. This is the original version and was bought from the Locatelli Palace in Bologna in the 18th century by the distinguished collector Hume, the English collector whose collection it was in until the 20th century, and then it passed into a French collection. So it's an important picture and has been fully confirmed by the Guercino expert Nicholas Turner. Another important Bolognese painting that we have is a new discovery by Guido Reni that has been accepted by the distinguished Reni scholar Raffaella Morselli, and she dates it right to the end of Guercino's career, the 1640s, between 1640 and his death in 1642. The picture does not appear on any inventory. The painting must have been given away by Guido Reni to a patron just before his death, as it's not in the inventories. But the painting shows this great spirited paintwork that Reni expresses in this period towards the end of his life. There's a great collection of paintings in the Museo Capitolina in Rome of this date, full of very light and fresh colours, a great spirited handling of paint, and a dramatic foreshortening of the body that creates a kind of illusionistic device. The painting may well have been part of a series in its original conception, and it anticipates classicism. We know that the 18th century painters and art theorists like Winkelmann and Albani were looking at Guido Reni's late paintings, and these were the kind of paintings that inspired classicism in the whole of the 18th century. So in an art historical context, this is an important classical subject, something that is utterly profane and very much anticipates the painting of the 18th century. Another Bolognese painting, one that is completely out of context with the others in the sense that it's a very early 14th century painting by an artist called Simone de Crocifissi. And this painting is unusual because it's signed at the bottom, which is unusual for a painting of this period. And we know from sources that this painting may have been in the church of San Leonardo and Orsola in Bologna, and commissioned possibly by a lay fraternity or merchants. It may have originally been part of a larger polyptych, but it's an unusual and well-preserved painting from this period. Marcantonio Franceschini's Rape of Europa is a painting that dates from the early period of the artist's career, has been dated by the expert Dwight Miller to the 1670s, the late 1670s, when Franceschini is still under the influence of Cignani, his master, but also shows his great flair and talent in depicting a highly classical and elegant subject. He is part of the language of Bologna, and his paintings are heavily influenced not only by Cignani, but of course by Domenichino, Guido Reni, and of course Albani. And again, he's one of these artists who anticipate classicism in its later stages. He works internationally. He's one of the Bolognese artists who, in the 1690s, comes to work in Vienna for one of the Liechtenstein princes and creates an interest in Italian pictures on the continent, outside of Italy. And this is an important development in the appreciation of Italian painting amongst other European collectors, not just Italians. He fits very much into that school of painting, along with another artist that is represented in the sale, Giovanni Antonio Pellegrini. Giovanni Antonio Pellegrini is a Venetian artist who travels extensively around the important artistic centres of Europe. We know that he works in Paris, he works in England for various important collectors, and he also works here in Vienna, painting the frescoes in the Karlskirche, amongst others. So he's one of a group of artists who, as Italian patronage is on the decline in the 18th century, are picked up by patrons in other areas of Europe, and the artists begin to travel quite extensively to complete commissions outside of their native cities. And Pellegrini anticipates the work of the Tiepolo and other Venetian artists in promoting a kind of international Rococo style that derives very much from Venice. This painting is another version of a lost painting that was in the National Gallery in Washington, but unfortunately was destroyed in the 1950s. So this is an important testament to a composition that was highly regarded and sought after by 18th century collectors. We have a painting from Ribera dated 1647, which comes from the end of his career. He was an important Spanish artist who spent a lot of his career in Naples, and this is a painting that shows his influence. Not only did he have a great influence on Italian painting, but also he shared the kind of reciprocal relationship, and this painting has a neochromatic tonality, which is typical of his paintings after the 1630s. The sort of kind of warmer, tenderer colours, the less cold colours, that create a very penitent and emotional image that is a mixture of Spanish and Italian painting, and why Ribera is considered such an important artist by collectors today, as he was in his own lifetime.
We are happy to present around 300 paintings ranging from the 15th to the late 18th century. Many paintings are of Dutch and Flemish origin, beginning with this one here. This is a work by the Utrecht manierist Joachim Wtewael, who was active in the first half of the 17th century. Wtewael was a painter who traveled a lot, and he spent years in Italy, in Bologna and in Venice, and he took the influence of Venetian and Bolognese artists, which is also visible in this painting, The Adoration of the Shepherds. It shows typical elements of Wtewael's art. He preferred normally small copper plates, very elegant, decorative, colorful paintings. This painting, which has a much bigger size, displays also his typical elements. In this sale we also have several masterworks by the family Bruegel, by Jan Bruegel the Younger and Jan Bruegel the Elder, beginning with the so-called windmill landscape, a typical landscape in the classical style of the Flemish artist of that period, changing from brown to green to blue colors in the background. There are also other scenes depicted by the Bruegels. One work by Jan Bruegel the Elder showing the rape of Proserpina, a scene from the Greek mythology, a very small and very delicate copper painting. There are several Dutch paintings from the Golden Century, one landscape with a duck hunt executed by Salomon van Ruysdael, and there is also a masterwork by a German artist of the 17th century, Matthias Gundelach. He was one of the court painters under Emperor Rudolf II at the court of Prague. He executed a very delicate small copper painting showing Venus with a Cupido, a very typical subject for the elegant art, the elegant atmosphere at the imperial court at Prague. One of the most interesting paintings concerning the iconography is Jean-Baptiste Vanmour's Procession of the Sultan in Istanbul, showing one of the Osman sultans in a procession riding towards the mosque, the former Hagia Sophia Cathedral. This painting depicts a lot of persons who accompany the Sultan on his way to the mosque. All these persons are very richly dressed, and they show the exotic element of Istanbul, the exotic elements of the Ottoman court, the Sultan who used to be a menace for Europe, but in that period the Ottoman Empire was no longer so powerful and it didn't threaten Europe. It was just exotic. It was the time of the so-called Turkerie. Turkish elements in the arts were very popular in Middle and Western Europe. That's why Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart composed his opera The Entführung from the Serail.